Are you sick of playing boring blues solos? I would be too, because trust me, I've been there. Luckily, I found that the biggest differences between boring blues solos and sexy blues solos really come down to a few key principles. The first key principle in playing sexy blues guitar solos is using trills. So trills are when you go back and forth between two notes in rapid succession. The first lick we're going to go over uses trills, and the great thing is they're not even that fast. A lot of times, if we know what trills are and we think of guys like Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan, we think of like lightning fast trills, like, but for this lick, we don't even have to do that. In fact, you can play trills at a relatively slow and sexy pace and still get the message across. And I'll show you what I mean. Here's lick number 1. So we start off between the 5th and 7th fret on the D string. So with our first finger on the 5th fret there, we pick that note, and then we're going to hammer onto the 7th fret with our 3rd finger, and we're going to pull back off to 5. We're going to try to sustain that as much as we can, and in the tab it'll say to play it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But in reality, you can do it as many times as you want. You can do it 10 times, 15 times, or 3 times, or whatever. With trills, we're just going back and forth between the same note. But for this one, we can just, for the sake of the tab, stick to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And after we do the 6th one, we're going to do a little blues bend on the 5th fret of the G string. So we pick that note and we bend it slightly, just right before it registers as a bend. That's when we want to stop it. So we get that quarter step blues bend. And then we're going to go 7, pull off to 5 on the D string. So all together. And like you heard in the beginning of the video, playing trills nice and slow still has a sexiness to it. It doesn't have to be super lightning fast. So don't be afraid of trills. You can start them off slow and over time build up speed. The second key principle in playing sexy blues guitar solos is milking the notes. In blues, repetition is a beautiful thing. And when we play notes over and over and over again, especially when we're bending notes, we can really milk them for all they're worth, and it gets the job done. So check this out. In lick number 2, I'm going to be milking the first note a few times before finishing it out, and it goes like this. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm just doing a half step bend from the 7th fret on the G string. So essentially from the pitch of the 8th fret here. All right, so it's getting into blue note territory. So when you're bending like that, when you're milking the note that way, it just has more of a swing feel to it. And I'm playing it 3 times, right? So and it's what's called a pre-bend. So I'll bend the note, then pick it, and then release. And I like to really dig in when I pick those pre-bended notes. So this is another example of milking the notes, is how hard you pick them. You can, attack hard, you can play it softly. Add different dynamics to it, I could play I can milk that note all day long playing it differently. Obviously, over a track would make more sense, but that's the whole point, right? You can milk these notes. So for this lick, we're just going to be milking it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. All right, once we bring it down, we're going to play 5th fret on the G string, and then 7th fret on the D string, and then we're going to bar it for a second to play the 7th fret on the G string. So it's 7 on D, 7 on G, and then we're going to slide with our first finger into the 7th fret and give it a little vibrato. So we're going. So that slide adds a nice little bonus effect to sexify the lick, right? So we're going. It's kind of another version of milking the note, right? We already picked it once with our 3rd finger, but then slid right into it with another finger. I like that. And that actually segues into the 3rd key principle, which is to use sliding and double stops, right? So in lick number 3, it's actually really, really simple, but really effective, where we're gonna take 2 notes playing at the same time, AKA a double stop, and we're gonna slide it back and forth. It's It's kind of an R&B technique, right, that you find in R&B songs. So of course, if you're adding some R&B flair to your blues solos, it's naturally going to be super sexy. So lick number 3 starts off real simple. We're just going to go 5, 7 on the D string, and then 5, 7 on the G string to lead up to it. Then with our first finger, we're going to slide up to the 7th fret while playing the D and the G string. So it's kind of a quick slide, and it's going to sustain for a while. So while it's sustaining, we're going to slide it back down to the 5th fret. You can also think of that sliding double stop almost like you're inhaling and exhaling, right? You know, when you kind of let it breathe, you know, it's not really about exactly where the inhale is and where the exhale is. I mean, you can, again, milk it a little bit, right? If you wanted to, or you can do it quickly. I would say leave it to the beat, right? If you're playing to a slow blues, there's all kinds of different ways you can do it. But in just doing little things like that, it just automatically makes your blues soloing so much sexier. And that leads us to the 4th and final key principle to making your blues guitar solos super sexy, and that is to play to the drums. I'm telling you, there is nothing sexier than playing a guitar lick that lines up with the drums. The rhythm section in general, you know, when you have the beat of the drums and the rumble of the bass, and you're playing some lead lines that's perfectly locked in with the band, I mean, mwah, it's amazing. So lick number 4 is actually a very simple lick, but the defining characteristic of it is that it's meant to lock in wherever I expect to hear a snare or a kick of the drum. So it goes like this. That's it. Super simple, but it's all in the timing. So a lick like that, you can play it free form like, right? That sounds okay, but when you play it, when I really staccato the notes, like really just kind of, you know, play them and then mute them, like, right? That restraint is part of what makes it feel like it's locked in with the beat. So what you want to do is slide up to the 7th fret on the D string. And once you get there, you want to mute it, right? So I use the palm of my picking hand, and then I mute it immediately once I slide into it. Then I'm going to play the 5th fret of the G string, and then mute it, right? And then 7th fret on the G string, and then mute it. So those are the staccato notes, right? So basically, we're not letting them sustain. We're just... So if we imagine a beat, boom, ta, ta, ka, ta, ta, boom, you know? And the last part of the lick, this is kind of where it may be a little bit challenging. It's going to be a quick bend and release, right? Starting on the 7th fret of the G string, we're going to bend a full step bend. So we're bending to the pitch of the 9th fret. So full step bend, and then we're releasing it. And it's happening fast, right? So we pick the note, right? And then we're going to pull off to the 5th fret, all right? And then we're going to land on the 7th fret of the D string. And we staccato that one too. So again, imagine some drums. Boom, doo, doo, ka, doo, doo, boom, doo, doo. Right? And that's such a repeatable lick too. I especially like to repeat the last part of that lick. So I'm playing that, you know, to a beat. Just refraining, just milking those last notes, right? Combining those 2 key principles. And it just makes for a ultra sexy lick. So when you combine all 4 of these licks, you got yourself some super sexy blues soloing going on. And you can take all 4 of those licks, play them in succession to a backing track, and pretty much craft an entire solo around it. And we haven't ventured past the 5th and 7th frets, you know, on the D and the G strings. If you wanted to, you can totally play these licks just playing by yourself with no backing, and it sounds great, you know? And of course, you can play these licks to your heart's content along with our slow blues backing track, which I'll leave the link to in the description box. By now, we've gone over 4 key principles to stop you from ever playing a boring blues guitar solo ever again, and some super sexy licks to go along with it. I'd say you're well on your way to becoming a blues guitar badass. And that's exactly why I want to give this gift to you. A free blues solo heat map. This has helped thousands of guitar players play blazing hot blues solos all over the fretboard, just like the pros do. So click here to claim your copy or check the link in the description box.